The agreement is supposed to be simple. The taxes we pay for public safety should strictly result in one measurable outcome: public protection. Across Middle Georgia, residents are describing a system that no longer honors that agreement. Citizens are stepping forward with accounts of missing records, dangerous jail conditions, and documented officer misconduct. A functioning institution meets those reports with prompt investigation and transparency. Here, individuals making these complaints are routinely ignored, publicly discredited, or suddenly detained themselves. The very system funded to shield the vulnerable is increasingly being used as a mechanism to silence them. This pattern of retaliation follows a specific structure, identified as the victim-to-suspect pipeline. The cycle begins when a resident reports misconduct. Instead of an inquiry, the report hits a wall of administrative silence.
Tell you one more time to get your ass out of here, sport. All right, you can don't make your way to some jail.
No list. Man, please. What for? Criminal attempt to commit extortion against Bibb County.
Records disappear. Then, the mechanism turns inward. The original reporter is suddenly targeted with retaliatory charges or forced into legal battles for basic public documents. In this current ecosystem, asking for accountability triggers a defensive, aggressive reflex from local authorities, rather than a protective one. To understand why this is happening, we have to look at the financial data. Local governments in the region are allocating record amounts of taxpayer money in the name of public safety. These budgets heavily favor expansive surveillance networks, new property acquisitions, and large-scale administrative infrastructure. Spending millions on new equipment while refusing to answer basic questions about misconduct is a paradox we call priority inversion.
Priority inversion is not progress. It is what happens when government promotes visible wins while core systems remain broken. Neighborhoods decay, jail conditions deteriorate, transparency weakens, public records become harder to obtain, and citizens with real concerns get ignored or blocked. Entertainment projects, branding campaigns, festivals, speeches, and ribbon cuttings may look good in a speech. But real leadership is measured by whether government fixes the systems people actually depend on. That is the standard.
This graph maps out the disconnect. We have a sharply rising curve representing financial inputs for public safety, intersecting with a completely stagnant line for transparency outputs. Despite possessing state-of-the-art surveillance tools, the system routinely fails to preserve or produce basic digital evidence, like dispatch histories or body-worn camera metadata. Middle Georgia operates with ample public safety resources and historic levels of funding. The actual deficit is one of systemic accountability, a structural failure that cannot be solved through increased spending alone. Public safety should be measured by actual outcomes rather than the scale of the annual budget. We have to audit those outcomes directly. Are victims actually being protected? Are their reports classified accurately? Are internal affairs files preserved? Are vital public records preserved? Are detention conditions safe? Are use of force incidents reviewed honestly? When institutions avoid answering these metrics, the nature of the system changes. Without verifiable outcomes, public safety devolves into public control. A badge, a budget, and a closed record room must never outweigh a citizen's constitutional right to the truth. Correcting this imbalance requires a structural shift. This campaign calls for 3 specific, non-negotiable actions. First, independent review. Agencies cannot solely review their own officers or jails. Second, records transparency. The public must have immediate access to use of force, budget, and booking documents. Third, budget accountability. Every splost and public safety dollar must be tied to measurable outcomes. Without these 3 structural pillars firmly in place, it is impossible for the public to evaluate or trust the safety of their own community. This campaign centers on a commitment to accountability, transparency, and the rights of victims. Complete records and honest reviews benefit everyone. Good officers, public servants, taxpayers, and local families all rely on a system that functions exactly as promised. The local budgets will always show the government's priorities, but it is the victims who will show us the true consequences.